Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Babbling Irons. So it's myself and Sloth again once today. Frankie is still not feeling well, but hopefully he will be feeling much better next week. But today we have some interesting news to announce, some news that came out of blue yesterday, and I think took us all a bit by surprise, really. So, Sloth, Mark Warburton, now the new assistant coach at West Ham. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really interesting move. I think because I mean, let's be honest. When you think of memorable kind of tacticians and things, you don't tend to think Mark Warburton. That's no insult to him, but just I would be lying if I sat here and thought that's an amazing move instantly, because it's just not the first name that comes to mind. But I know I went and did a bit of Googling, and I think his preferred formation is 4-2-3-1, which suits us down to the ground. And I was just kind of looking at some of the players that he'd managed as well. Of course, Eze had a fantastic season under him. I think it was 14 goals and 10 assists.
Something like that, yeah.
And he also had a player that we've been linked with quite a lot in the form of Berrington Diaz, and it didn't work out for him under Warburton. But I think when we look at the kind of players that he's managed, the kind of teams that he's taken on, I think it's a move that really suits us. To be honest, it's one that I'm actually quite excited by. So.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting one, obviously, because we've taken someone who's arguably of a manager's quality. Obviously, very much kind of battle scarred and battle worn in the Championship, and obviously did well in the SPL with Rangers. So it's it's a marked step up. It's quite at the time when we lost Stuart Pearce, it felt a bit of a what's happening here, because it was a bolt out of the blue. But obviously, to be getting someone, say, of Warburton's known caliber at the Championship level, and it's definitely positive. And the other thing that's quite impressive is obviously his philosophy seems to be a lot around attacking football, which is obviously great. I think that's music to any West Ham fans. Is that it's someone who is very much focused on that attacking side of football and being quite open and flexible. The thing that I found interesting was last year he played a lot of the 3-4-3 formation with Queen's Park Rangers, and he had a bad end of year and they kind of dropped off. But when you look at it over the 3 years and where QPR were to where he got them, especially in the first part of this season, they were genuine candidates for a playoff push. So you think that he came in, I think he got rid of 16 players, brought in 16 players, promoted youth. And obviously in that period as well, we had players that came in and actually went for, he had Hugo, who did incredibly well for him, but obviously got a better offer at Norwich. We sold him there, and, he lost essentially his talisman for that season, who was brilliant with, you had Eze as well, the likes of him. So, and you look as well at his history with Brentford, he's got quite a stellar history in the Championship, and that can only breed maybe good competition as well within the backroom staff, because everyone, it's bringing that level up. But what do you think in terms of like leadership, what that kind of brings to the club? How do you think it will work with Moyes, with him there as well?
I think it's a really kind of strong statement. I mean, we've gone from a place where, we were talking about Psycho being appointed as manager, and everyone thought, bloody hell, that's really good. Like, it's a long time since I've looked at a coaching appointment and thought, well, that's exciting. Not from any kind of disrespect to Moyes or Pellegrini, anything like that. But I mean, a backroom staff appointment, for that to be exciting is something that I think I can't really remember, apart from maybe Nolan. But even then, I didn't look at that and think that's exciting. Like, it's not a statement, whereas this feels like a bit more of a statement. And obviously, I don't know if you read X's piece on it, the great ex-WHU employee, but he basically mentioned that he was going to go and join Birmingham before this, and because of Sullivan's links, that's really what brought this move about. So, you know, even me, a big bored out man, has to kind of say that's a great job.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing, is it sometimes you, as much as we loathe to praise, sometimes praise is warranted, and it should be given. So yeah, I think that's a fair point.
I'll counterbalance it by saying, like, you know, even a broken clock is right twice a day, or if you throw enough excrement at something, you're going to hit
something is definitely going to stick once in a while. Yeah.
So that's the counterbalance, but I think it's a really interesting one. And as you say, that kind of attacking football that he clearly likes to play can only really be exciting for West Ham fans. So I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, and I find, obviously, with what they played last year at QPR, they played the kind of the wing back system, and they played to quite a good level. You do kind of question as to, has Warburton been brought in as well to help improve us in that shape? Because that was a shape we really struggled with last year when we went to that 3 at the back. And getting a manager that used it over the course of a year, learn how to get the best out of, no disrespect to QPR, but, you know, lesser players, so to speak, and getting them to perform against some really big teams in the Championship, that he's looking at Warburton in which to maybe help them understand how to be attacking in that formation. Because I think it was Patrice Evra who always said that it frustrated and annoyed him when people talked about the 3 at the back system as being defensive, because if you use it correctly, it's a very offensive lineup, which arguably I can understand, because you consistently can have 3 in attack. You can put 4 in midfield. So in fact, actually what you're doing is now allowing yourself to kind of create loads of overloads in the flanks, and even internally if you push your wingers inside. So it's if you use it correctly, it can be a very offensive kind of formation. But then again, also it gives you that extra security with that extra man in the kind of back 3. But I think obviously from a leadership point of view, it's great to have, effectively now we have, you know, Kevin Nolan, who was a manager, albeit for like a season or so. But again, he was also a captain. He understands the players. He has good leadership qualities. You know, we have Warburton now, who has managed teams. He's used to dealing with, you know, kind of egos and such. He probably hasn't had any to this level, Premier League level. But again, still, it's that understanding of working with players. I imagine he'll have some kind of forthright views on how we play things, and maybe how we maybe attack and how we play a bit more in that way, which I think is only good. I don't think you can have a backroom staff that can always agree. I think if you have that little bit of friction in that the backroom, it's probably a good thing, because it's going to bring the best out of everyone as long as it's constructive. And I think that's another thing. And as you say, to pull someone out who is a well-known name, and to also give up an opportunity to manage themselves and be the man in charge, to come and be a number 2 at the Premier League club, I think that says a lot about where we are right now as a club. I think it also says a lot about the stock fellow professionals have in David Moyes, in that they feel that they can be that number 2 and still be heard and still be valued, to the point of they're willing to give up being the main man themselves. I think that's quite a probably say, yeah, I think it is probably a bit of a coup from the club, really, to pull this off. And it's a bit of a surprise. And I think the other big surprise was we managed to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
How many times would have been leaked or known for a week or 2 that this was happening? It just seemed to just come out of nowhere.
It does sounds like it was kept in house, like it was a known thing that we were going for it, or we'd kind of raised the option. But yeah, to kind of almost feel like it was sprung out of nothing is something that's quite refreshing. And I think it's something really positive that when I look at transfers, I'm kind of hoping for more of the same.
Yeah.
And it just kind of hopefully speaks to a bit more of a new ethos at the club, where we go about business in a less vocal way, and in a way that, although it's known, it's not necessarily going straight to talk sport and being dealt with there. So
yeah. No, I think again, we're coming back to it's that nice to see that we've done business professionally. It doesn't seem to have been aired in the media like it normally is and dragged out. We normally get a kind of a sniff of information. Obviously, this isn't any kind of remark against the ITKs. This got nothing to do with that, but it's just the fact that it's nice to see something just comes very left field very quickly and without any kind of forewarning. It was a nice surprise to have on the Friday, and obviously when the tweet they dropped the pin tweet, the natural assumption for everyone was that it's Areola, this is amazing, we're going to see Areola. Exactly. And then all of a sudden we got a new assistant coach, and I think that's what impressed me the most, was not just the quietness of the deal and how it was done so quickly. It was that when Pierce moved again, him moving on hasn't really seemed to kind of surface. It hasn't seemed like there's any kind of ill feeling or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that was done quickly, without any fuss. It just happened. And then when we brought Warburton, same thing. But it's the fact as well that we've got in someone so quickly after Pierce going, and we've got someone in before we even get to pre-season. That for me is amazing, because normally we would have been hunting around, rooting around, and maybe questioning, do we promote someone like Kevin Nolan? It's a refreshing change.
I think just on that kind of topic of the ITKs, one of the things that with West Ham, it feels like recently we've had is it's just not been a planned approach. And hopefully this is just a bit of a clearer plan at board level, but also behind the scenes. We're talking about scouting and places we're scouting, and that's all well and good, but we've kind of seen the counter point to that earlier in the year with January, where obviously we had a list of targets and we tried to get them, but it just didn't work out. And we can have a plan, but obviously that was the wrong plan. So I think with what we're talking about, the ITKs, it's not so much an issue of I don't like that kind of thing being done, because it's not at all. Like I think I wrote for the West Ham. I wrote an article long time ago. It was interesting. It was actually recommending El Nesri.
Yeah.
He was on the list of players that I put from Leganés.
Way back when,
And I went to one of the first West Ham Way events at the old working club. So it's not. Yeah. It's not.
Exactly. I think, to be fair, the ITKs, it adds to the theatre of what is the transfer window. I think what has always been the issue is how much information filtered out. And this is why I give a lot of respect to X, because there's a lot of stuff he doesn't say, whereas others like to be first rather than right. So they will pull a lot of stuff out. And this is why this one was so nice, because there was nothing, absolutely nothing, and it just hit. And it's wow, this is great to see.
And I when I mentioned the ethos before, I think it speaks to that kind of clearer plan of we're not just throwing stuff and hope it sticks. It's not just bidding for Diaz and then Liverpool coming in and then looking for another target. It's having options, having a plan B, and if this kind of approach is what we're doing with Brozier, then that makes me feel really confident. So I've kind of taken it as the club have gone with more of a plan. They've got more of a vision about what they want and the kind of players that they want, the kind of staff that they want from it. So hopefully I'm not just being optimistic, but reading too much into it. But that's kind of what it said to me anyway.
No, I got to agree. It does seem like there's a clear view on this one. There was a clear plan as to once there was at least an inkling, there was an interest and an availability, rather than it being leaked or it being made up. The deal was done first, and then it was, here we are. And I think that's quite a refreshing thing, is that there wasn't any kind of furore, nothing about it. It was just, we didn't know, it was just in and done. And that's great to see it. And I think the fact that we get someone who is very much of an attack mind, when we look at our staff previously, Stuart Pearce, rather conservative and pragmatic when he was a manager. You obviously have David Moyes, who's also pretty much the same, quite pragmatic and a bit conservative. And then obviously Kevin Noland was an attacking player, but again, played for pragmatic managers, so he's going to have that level of pragmatism. So to have someone who is arguably a bit of a different voice within that, who looks to attack, also very comfortable setting his teams up in the back for playing that attack and expansive football, but also then reverting to different shapes, such as the three in the back. I think that's a good thing, because it just brings that little extra diversity, that little maybe a different mindset as to maybe how do we create space, how do we exploit those spaces a bit more. And it's only going to be a good thing to have that diversity within the club and within that backroom staff. So, I'm personally quite happy with Warburton. I think we'll see over the course of the season what his impact is, but I think in the early points and the early stages, I think it's great. And I think we've got Warburton, also we can start concentrating on other things, such as transfers. And one of those transfers that we've had some really good news over from the last couple of days was the man himself, Areola, who seems to be forever edging forward. It seems like now an agreement is almost in place, and next week we should see the big man joining the club permanently. How do you feel about
that? I'm delighted with it, to be honest. Like, it's probably, I mean, it was, for me, it was the most exciting bit of business last year, because I think I've watched him for a long time, and I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. And a lot of people really got hung up on the fact that Fulham got relegated. And he was in goal when Fulham got relegated. He conceded a lot of goals, and it's like, okay, but
Fabianski was exactly the same at Swansea.
And we've had so many great keepers who've suffered relegation. It's not a case of it's all just down to him. If he was putting in repeated howler after howler, then I'd probably be going, hold off.
I think he had the highest save rate, or one of the highest save rates in the league at the time, and also one of the highest prevented goals. When you think of it,
I mean, I try and kind of take those with a pinch of salt a lot of the time, because when that kind of stat is released, I think, well, was it a difficult save, or was it one that should be saved? But I think he's a great bit of business, and we spoke about Warburton being an exciting appointment in terms of what he brings to the club, or it's a bit of a statement. I think getting Areola in with his record, PSG, Madrid, those are invaluable. And if you're going to have a name like Areola in goal, I'm hoping next season it's really the start that he's going to be the starting keeper. Fabianski is going to be in the cups, and it's not a dig at Fabianski. I really like him, and I think, unfortunately, I also think his best days are behind him. It's not in any way me saying he's a bad keeper. He's not. Do I think he could have saved a few more goals this year? Yeah. But
The Arsenal one always sticks in my mind. And I think it was Tim Howard saying that he has this, it's like a tick in that prior to him diving, he'll do a little hop.
Yeah.
And because he does this kind of momentary hop and then springs, it seems to take a bit of his momentum. And it also means that half a second that he is in the air, then he's not able to get across because he's taken his own time away, which to do that. I find that he also tends to get rooted a lot more on his line, or even just with shots. He tends to see him watch shots go by a bit more than we used to see, I think, with him.
I don't want to make it feel like it's a dig at Fabianski, because it's not. But I just think if you're signing him, and after he was fantastic in the Europa League, I'm not really gonna pay much dividends to his howler in the cup, in domestic cups. But that's one. Every keeper has a howler now and again, and I just think that to have Areola and Fabianski at the same time is fantastic, but we need to be looking for him to be the number one and really kind of making a bit of a statement. This is a new West Ham.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have Zuma in the back with Aguerd. Then you've got this kind of the French fortress. I think
that's a good thing as well. You have 3 players that can speak in a native language, which is only going to improve the communication between those 3. Which obviously is great because obviously they all speak multiple languages. I think Aguerd speaks 4 languages, something like that, and his English is perfect as it is anyway. But again, it's just that.
I think he speaks about 5. I think he speaks Filipino. I think he also speaks French, Spanish. It's one of those things where you look at players and you think, if you've got him in the dressing room, you've almost got this kind of conduit.
So many, yeah. But I think Areola is great. He's incredible presence in the box, and I agree with you. Next year, I would envision that he is going to be the man. Fabianski's been great over these last few years for us. We can't dispute that. There have been times in the last year or so where there's been moments where you just go, is he starting to wane? Is his reflexes going a bit more? Is that why he stays on the line a bit? So you can kind of see where you'd question his long-term future. But obviously now he's yet to sign that contract in terms of officially being announced. Well, so we've been told that he has signed, but obviously we have to assume until it's actually on the club website that that's not the case. But should he sign, it's only going to be a single-year contract. So again, it's you are, if you sign Areola and he's not number one and you're giving it to a player that's only going to be there for the next year, it doesn't send a good message to your new permanent signing. So you would imagine that should Areola be signing, which he's going to be doing as of next week, he's signing to be the number one, and Fabianski will be our cup goalkeeper.
I think the other thing that is kind of glossed over with him as well is that, to quote our man Moyes, is that he's a winner. It's what he does. He's been at clubs. He's won lots of things, and it's to have that experience is invaluable. So to go from having keepers in the past where you think, I don't know, you get the jitters. Now we've got a place where our number one is potentially solid, and then backup is solid, and that's something that to have 2 players signed on. I know there's a lot of talk about Areola's wages.
Mm-hmm.
He's the goalkeeper and he could potentially be the highest paid. Well, I don't really care. I think it's weird.
It's an old-fashioned view, though, isn't it? That you don't pay a goalkeeper as much when you think that a goalkeeper in itself can be the difference between a point or 3 points. Those guys can earn you points on their own in games where your back's against the wall. But we've relied on Fabianski a number of times in recent years where he's kept us not only just engaged, but he's effectively won us a game.
Yeah. Well, you could argue that Areola gave us one of the best nights in our club's recent history.
Had he not scored that, had he not saved that En-Nesyri shot, the likelihood is we wouldn't have gone on to have done what we did. I think we probably would have lost momentum. Our heads would have dropped a little. So sometimes when you see someone going in and make that kind of bone-crunching tackle, or a goalkeeper put off a magnificent save, it's those little kind of minute moments that just drives the team on.
Yeah.
And I think, you've got to look at Areola and think as well that had he not been French, he would be a number one goalkeeper probably for any nation. But because he's French, there's Lloris, and he's long-standing number one for France, so that's not going to change for any time soon. So you'd kind of think that had he been in pretty much any other nation, he would have been a first-team goalkeeper for his international team for many a year as well, because he's just so good and imposing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've seen a lot of was people saying, "Oh, well, we could have got Pope," and I really like Pope. I think he's a fantastic shot stopper, but he doesn't have that experience. He doesn't have that winning experience. And when you're getting two keepers in and you're looking at paying £10 million, even if Areola is on 80 grand more, whatever, I don't know what kind of he's on, but if he is, well, you could argue that's winning. That's him, his experience. That's what happens when you want to buy a big name. It's no disrespect to Pope. I think he's a fantastic keeper. But I think it's that mentality that of a goalkeeper shouldn't be the highest paid is strange to me, particularly when everyone must have missed David De Gea over the past few seasons, where he was one of the highest paid players in the Premier League. It just confuses me. No,
exactly. It's feels a bit like an archaic argument that you don't pay a goalkeeper arguably the going rate of someone out of field, because they are just as important. They're the one position where you almost have to be perfect, because if you make a mistake as a goalkeeper, normally results in a goal. Make a mistake anywhere else on the pitch, you normally have at least someone who can try and bail you out. Whereas a goalkeeper, you make a mistake, that's it, you're done. So in some cases, it's probably the most highest pressure position on the pitch, because you have to be almost perfect every game. And players like Edison and Alisson have just put an even greater burden on goalkeepers. Obviously, before that, you have had goalkeepers before that, such as Neuer. Before that, you had the true innovator of the sweeper goalkeeper in Chelevert. Crazy goalkeeper, but he was the sweeper keeper. So, these demands have become so much bigger for goalkeepers. And Areola can use his feet well. He can pass the ball out. And that's also an added benefit, to have that goalkeeper who can manage that. It's something that can't be overlooked. Whether it's worth the few extra £1,000 that we're going to pay him over someone like Nick Pope, that's questionable. That's down, I think, then to people's preference. But, I do think we've got the stronger deal. Do like Nick Pope, but I do always feel with Nick Pope, you are going to get a game or two where he's going to have a bit of a ricket in him. Yeah. Areola always feels a bit more solid to me, gives me a bit more confidence when I watch him. So, I think it's a great deal for us to get that one. And we've also had another name as of today, really, coming up in Luca Pellegrini. So, looks like the interest has been renewed here. We did look, I think, last year for a loan deal, which didn't really transpire. But, rumored to be available for 10 million euros. So, it's probably not the most exciting deal that some people will think of. When we take a look at him over the last year in comparison to Cresswell, there are some clear differences in their style if you just look at them statistically. But again, it's like important things such as the age difference. Be looking at a player who's 23 years old. He's also a little bit taller as well, which is obviously a good thing for us, because Cresswell, it's only 5'7", but he is pretty useful in the air. We'll give him that. But again, to have a player who's more comfortable to carry the ball, as we can see, basically two, almost not going on to three kind of carries a game, and also quite successful in those. His crossing's pretty good. He is quite advanced as a player. He tends to carry more than he will actually kind of pass. So when you look at things such as the progressive passes or even the forward passes in comparison to Cresswell, obviously they're night and day because there is quite a disparity. But again, you have one player who looks to get forward with the ball at his feet, likes to kind of get in advance of the winger to kind of create space. So he is a completely different profile to Cresswell. I guess our question is he significant enough improvement on Cresswell, or is he one that we bring in who improves just enough that we can then try to look to develop?
I think the problem with this is that for me, he's not. I don't look at him and think he's going to be an outstanding left back. And when we've looked at, I know we've mentioned Malacia, and he looks like he's moving to Lyon. We've mentioned Wijndal, or it's players like Bard as well. And I think you look at them and they have, I think they've got a huge amount of potential. And I mean, any player who Juventus sign, you automatically think they've got this stamp of approval. They've got this ability anyway. But I just kind of think with him, it's not the player I would have gone for. But if Moyes wants him, it's he knows more than me. What else am I like? It's I'll back the decision. It's not a case of I think this is a bad transfer. I don't think it's a bad transfer. I think there's more exciting options out there, and 10 million is the kind of money that means we'll have a lot more to spend elsewhere on the pitch. And if that means we're going to go after Onana in the centre mid, then amazing. If it means we're going to be spending more on someone like Brozier, or even getting a winger in, something like that, for a bit of money, then fine. To be honest, I think it's not something that really excites me, but because I can still see Moyes going with Cresswell, regardless of what happens. I can see him. He's his safe bet, and unless we really had the one that stands out for me, and I think he's not perfect in any way, but I think is a Moyes player, is Bassi, in the way that he's got that physical edge, but he's got the pace. And when he has played left back, because I know he's played, he's pretty much 50-50 in terms of left back and centre back. Yeah. But when he has played left back, he's really looked to get forward. He's used his pace and he's used his size and that athleticism to just work hard. His crossing isn't amazing, but it's one of those things where if he's working with Cresswell, then it's probably going to improve. Sometimes Cresswell's passing isn't great. People overlook that because he can deliver an excellent cross, or he can hit.
I always find those crosses are more set piece than an open player. Finding open play, unless he's afforded time and actually in a deeper position, the crosses are vastly inconsistent into the area, and they tend to actually just miss everyone and go to the back post completely. And we don't have an Andy Carroll who can almost make something out of nothing because he's such a big lump to get on it. And I think also, again, that's probably paid with Souček not being as far advanced.
Yeah,
and being back post.
That's probably the one that I think if we can get a left back in who has a bit more physicality and pace, but can deliver the same sort of crosses, that it doesn't matter so much about the consistency. With it, if we have this physical edge, if we have the 6'3", kind of 6 foot average height that you know, a Moyes looks like he wants, then that's going to be huge. It's literally, but it's also going to be a case of you're looking at players who will get onto the end of a cross. And with Souček, you know he's going to throw himself to the end of a cross.
Yeah.
You know that someone like Antonio is going to throw themselves into a cross, even though he's not 6 foot. You know that these players are going to throw themselves. And it's... Pellegrini is one that kind of... he does... He has that kind of delivery. It's certainly kind of about with Cresswell, but I look about and I think, could we maybe do something a little bit more exciting? And if we were to look at Bassi, then, you know, that's a centre back covered as well. Yeah. That would allow us to give that 3 at the back, and you could play Cresswell on that kind of left wing back, and or you could play him at the centre back where he has been before.
Oh god, it can be out in obviously left back. Yeah,
it's a really kind of move that I think it would be good. I think it's a decent move. 10 million euros for that kind of player with that kind of experience. It's never a bad move. But is it the one that I would make it? Not really. But yeah, if he's throwing up the irons next week, then yeah, 100% behind him.
Yeah, I think it's one of the players that we covered, obviously, in our recruitment thing. And you know, one of the things that we found was defensively, he is, let's just say, he's happy to go in for a challenge. I think is the polite way of putting it.
Yeah.
But he can be rash. He can be overly aggressive. He does give away a lot of fouls. But again, he also then you have the argument that he's giving away those fouls because he is willing to engage a lot more defensively. He wants to have that physical battle. Doesn't always come out on top on it. But again, it's a player that likes to go in. I do find that sometimes his concentration can leave him a little bit out of position, or in his eagerness to pressure, he will step out too soon, and his decision makers can be questionable at times. He is good going forward. He's good with the ball at his feet. There are a lot of rough edges, you know, as we've kind of touched on. He does have a bit of a prestigious background. One, obviously, with his current club in Juventus, obviously came through Roma, their youth team. He did quite well at, I think it was Genoa. He was at last year, and he did quite well there. But I echo your sentiments. He's not one that I would probably go for as a top pick. If I was looking in Serie A, I'd probably be looking at someone like Merla, Mulder, and even Vigna, who is at Roma, would probably be the choices I would put ahead of him.
Well, who's the big old unit at Udinese? Udinese.
Yeah, the young kid. Yeah. Begins with a U, but I cannot remember how to pronounce it. I can't also remember his name. Ubere or something like that. But yeah, he's only 18, 19. Just moved to left back, and he has been, well, it's been incredible, to be honest, for Udinese. I think he also was drawing attention from Juventus, which is part of the reason why they're looking to move on Pellegrini. Probably a loan to shift back on loan deal with Juve. But he's another one that you would go when you're looking at Serie A. You're not necessarily looking at Pellegrini first.
I think one thing that you know, when we talk about him giving away fouls quite a lot, his sending offs isn't too like his. You can tell they're not like reckless challenge. I'm quite happy with tactical fouls to be given away, especially with how good we are in the air, and I think that's just the difference with Cresswell and him, is that he's a lot more athletic than Cresswell. He's got a lot more pace, so he can get back, he can make those challenges. And if that means he gets a yellow card or he gives away a free kick, well, I'm a lot more confident about us defending that than I am against Mo Salah running against Cresswell, or that kind of thing is the athleticism he has. I think kind of is what would really comfort me in the signing, really. And the fact that he gives away the free kicks, you don't want to be giving them away every week, but I feel a lot more confident about that than facing pace every single week.
No, exactly. And the thing that I like about him, we have said that his aggressiveness is not necessarily great, and that gives away fouls and he gets in. But again, that aggressiveness also works in both ways. He's aggressive when going forward. He's aggressive in getting back. And that level of athleticism, that aggressiveness, means that he's always going to commit. He's fully committed in, whether it be offensive duels, attacking duels, defensive duels, whether it's running for a 50-50, he will give everything for that. And I think the other, one of the things that we probably haven't talked about, which is probably something that he would enjoy and will want, is the fact that this is an opportunity for first team football.
Yeah.
He had that at Genoa. He kind of got games in here and there at Roma when he's coming through. Obviously, Juventus, he's a bit part player. Again, you're not really probably going to play over Alexandro very often. So, this would be that moment to cement himself. And at the age of 23, it's probably the time now where he should be kind of cementing that. Let's face it, he is Italian. Italians, no matter what, always know how to defend.
Yeah. I think, like you mentioned about his commitment there, West Ham fans will love that. People still love Thomas Repka, and when I thought that's a bit suspect, like it's like nothing against him at all, but he wasn't technically the best defender, but he gave everything. And if you can have a combination of someone who's got ability with that drive, that work ethic, then West Ham fans are going to love you. Like, they're going to love you. And the chances are that even if you have a lad with all the ability and half the work ethic, you're going to get there above him because you're showing that day in, day out. So especially for someone like Moyes, that's going to be big for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's probably a really good point to end with Pellegrini. I think probably a good point for us to wrap up today. But all in all, Warburton is a great piece of business for us. We'll, over the course of the season, we'll obviously see how good that does pan out. Fingers crossed. It adds a new dimension to how we attack, how we play. Obviously, if we go back to that three at the back formation, that it also then kind of gives a greater level of improvement there and more flexibility. Obviously, Areola looking like next week. Fantastic piece of news. We can finally celebrate having a long-term goalkeeper probably for the next 6 or 7 years, really, with his age. And a very strong goalkeeper that is as well. And, with Luca Pellegrini, maybe not the guy that we want, but probably the guy that we need as a left back. And, should he sign, we'll all back him. And, I think it's interesting. I would suspect we have other targets. I still would think that we're maybe looking at the likes of Truffert and seeing if there is a chance to get Rand to give us another player, which would be fantastic. But again, it's at the moment, it's all theatre. It's the transfer window. Nothing's real, nothing's certain until it actually happens. But I think there's been another good week being West Ham in this window. There are some very positive things coming next week. Looks like we'll have more good news to come. Hopefully we'll back that up with, maybe another 2 signings, or at least a signing edging closer anyway. Yeah. But with that, I'll say thanks for everyone who's watched today. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Babbling Irons. If you like this, please do hit the like, hit the subscribe button. I never said that last week because I don't do the presenter stuff. Yeah. But please do, guys. If you do like this, do subscribe, do like this, and obviously do follow us on Twitter as well. And we'll be back next week to talk about Areola because he is going to sign. I'm positive. Yeah, with everything crossed. So yeah, please do join us next week when we'll talk through Areola. what's going on in the transfer window for West Ham, and hopefully some other good news stories that maybe come out during the week. But
yeah,
thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Sloth, once again, and come on your irons.
Go on your irons.